You know that supercomputer you carry around in your pocket? Its story doesn't start with some flashy product launch. Note, it begins with a quiet, brilliant idea all the way back in 1948. We're going to trace a direct line from a single, simple concept to the totally connected world we live in today. So let's start at the very beginning. It all starts right here, with this one sentence from a paper written by a Bell Labs engineer named Claude Shannon. Now get this, he wasn't trying to invent the internet or the smartphone, he was tackling something much more basic. How do you send a message, any message, perfectly from one place to another? And this is how he pictured it, this simple, almost elegant little diagram from his 1948 paper. Well, it became the blueprint for everything. Seriously. Every email, every text, every video call you make follows this exact same path. A source sends a message through a transmitter, across a channel, to a receiver, and finally to its destination. This is the literal DNA of all digital communication. Okay, so what was the stroke of genius behind this blueprint? Well, Shannon came up with a completely new way of looking at information, and that one shift in perspective, it's the reason our digital world even exists. Here it is. This is the core of his breakthrough. Shannon realized that for an engineer, the meaning of a message, whether it's a deep, heartfelt love letter or just your grocery list, is totally irrelevant. The real problem is uncertainty, how many different messages could possibly be sent. That's what a system has to be able to handle. He basically turned communication from a messy, human problem into a clean, predictable math problem. He even gave this uncertainty a name you've probably heard before in a different context: entropy. In information theory, entropy is just a fancy word for unpredictability or surprise. Think about it. If I'm about to flip a coin, the entropy is high because you have no idea if it's going to be heads or tails. But if the coin is two-headed, the entropy is zero. There's no surprise at all. Shannon's entire goal was to send a message perfectly, even with all that uncertainty. And his solution to conquer entropy was just beautiful. The bit. Short for binary digit, a bit is the smallest possible chunk of information you can have. It's the answer to a single yes or no question. With every single bit you get, you slash the uncertainty in half. It's the perfect tool for the job. And here's where the idea becomes a reality. A single bit can be represented by anything with two states. A light switch is either on or off. A voltage is either high or low. This simple binary language of ons and offs, of ones and zeros, became the universal alphabet for every single computer, phone, and digital gadget that came after. So this ability, this new power to represent absolutely everything as just a long string of ones and zeros, it fueled a massive shift in technology. It let us take a great leap from the fuzzy, imperfect world of analog to the clean, perfect world of digital. So on the left here, you've got analog. Think of it like a smooth, continuous wave, kind of like the sound of my voice. But over on the right, you've got digital. It's a series of distinct, separate steps, more like a staircase. It only has two values, 1 or 0, on or off. And that rigid structure is what makes digital signals so much easier to compress, to encrypt, and most importantly, to copy perfectly over and over again. Let's use an analogy. An analog signal is like a beautiful painting. You can capture incredible, subtle detail, right? But every time you try to make a copy of it, it gets a little smudged. A little bit of noise, a little bit of static creeps in and messes with the original. This is exactly why those first car phones and old brick phones sounded so crackly and full of static. A digital signal, though, is like building with Lego bricks. A brick is either there, that's a 1, or it's not there, that's a 0. There's no in between. You can take that Lego creation apart and rebuild it 1,000,000 times, and it will be absolutely perfect every single time. And that perfect replicability, that's what makes our entire modern world possible. But how did this perfect brick-by-brick way of communicating go from a theory in a Bell Labs paper to the device that's probably in your hand right now? Well, that's the story of the mobile revolution, from 1G all the way up to 5G. And man, this journey happened fast. The 80s gave us 1G. It was analog, just for voice calls, and yeah, anyone with a cheap scanner could listen in. Then boom, the 90s hit and 2G was the real game changer. Everything went digital, calls got clearer, and we got our first taste of data with text messages, or SMS. The 2000s brought 3G and the real mobile internet. But the 2010s, 4G made streaming video on the bus feel totally normal. And that brings us to today, to the era of 5G. And let's be clear, 5G is so much more than just faster movie downloads. It's a foundational shift. It combines super low delay with the ability to connect a massive number of devices at the same time. This is the technology that's going to power the future. We're talking about smart cities, where everything talks to everything else, robotic surgery performed from halfway across the world, and truly immersive virtual and augmented reality that feels, well, real. This whole incredible technological journey, from Shannon's abstract idea all the way to the power of 5G, well, it hasn't just changed what our phones can do. It has fundamentally changed us. It's changed how we relate to one another and what it even means to be connected. And this brings us to the paradox we're all living in. This constant connection is a total double-edged sword. On the one hand, it's never been easier to stay in touch with people far away or to find a community that offers emotional support. But on the other hand, we're all dealing with new kinds of challenges. The pressure to be constantly available, the risk of having hundreds of connections that feel superficial, and all the miscommunication that happens when you just can't see the other person's face. We also see this really clear generational divide. You can see it right here in this chart. For digital natives, people who grew up with this technology, online interaction is just a primary, totally normal way to live their social lives. But for many older generations, it's still seen as a supplement, a useful tool, but not a replacement for actually seeing someone in person. And this difference in how we see it shapes everything from our friendships to our families. So, we've come full circle. Claude Shannon gave us the mathematical tools for perfect communication. He solved the engineering problem, but he left the human problem for us to figure out. He gave us the ability to reproduce any message perfectly. Now the question is, what kind of messages do we actually want to send?